ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. Respectful honorable friends, as you may have already gathered by the verses that have been recited to you, the next set of injunctions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention in Surah Baqara is that of Siyam. Last week we had done Qisas and Wasiyah. In this ruku, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of Siyam, and later on in the verses that have been read, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of Itikaf, etc. In the first opening verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. That, O you who believe, kutiba alaykum as-siyam, fasting has been ordained upon you, كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون, the way it was ordained upon those people before you, لعلكم تتقون, so that you may create taqwa. أياما معدودات, the days of which are numbered. فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر, thus whoever from you is ill or on travel, his numbers will be on another day. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ, and upon the one who has the ability, فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ, he should give the compensation of feeding one poor. فَمَنْ تَطَوَّعَ خَيْرًا فَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَهُ, and whoever does good, it is good for him. وَأَن تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, and that you fast is better for you if you were to know. In this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of the compulsion of siyam, of fast, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, O you who believe, fasting has been ordained upon you as it was ordained upon those before you. The word siyam actually means imsak. Imsak means to abstain. Abstain from what? To abstain from eating and drinking and sexual intercourse with a person's wife. This is the meaning of imsak, of siyam. And to abstain from these things in the month of Ramadan, and that also from the time of Subh Sadiq till the time of Ghurub, till the time of sunset. Whoever abstains from these things in that period of time with the intention of fasting, he has completed Siyam, he has fasted. If a person fasts the whole day, but he decides to break his fast just a couple of minutes before sunset, he will not have fulfilled the obligation of fasting. In the same way, if a person in the entire day he stays away from eating and drinking, but he doesn't make the intention of fasting, he won't get the reward of fasting, but it will just be a hunger strike. So Siyam is wherein a person makes imsak, he abstains from these things with the intention of fasting. This is what you call Sawm, fast. كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has ordained fasting upon us just the way He had ordained it upon those people who were before us. Fasting was ordained upon all the previous ummats. However, the nature, the time and the amount differed. They also had fasting in the previous ummats, but it was different to this ummat. Not that they also had the entire month to fast for 30 days, it was different. This way for this ummah also, it is only later on that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained fasting. Initially, fasting was only on the day of Ashura, and 1 to other days the Muslims used to fast. Otherwise there was no fasting during the month of Ramadan. It was ordained later on. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by saying كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, actually wants to make it easy for the believers and give them some hope. Because Siyam, dear friends, is something which we all know isn't easy. To fast during the day for the entire month of Ramadan is obviously not easy. Nobody will say that he finds it so easy, etc. However, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it has been ordained upon you, but just the way it was ordained on others before you. So you are not the only ones who are fasting, but even the previous ummahs, people before you, also went through fasting. So obviously this makes it easy for a person. If somebody is told that no, only you have to undertake this, if it becomes difficult. But if it's all your friends also, all your colleagues, everybody has gone through it, then it gives a person more hope that, well, if everybody else has also gone through it, if they've managed, then in the same way I shall also be able to go through it, and I shall also manage. So in the same way, obviously the believers found it difficult at the start. But when by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying كَمَا كُتِبَ عَلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, was to make it easy for them. The previous ummats also did fast. So in the same way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained fasting upon this ummat. And then the reason for it is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you create taqwa. So that by the means of Siyam, fast, a person inculcates in him taqwa. Now in today's session I don't want to go into the details with regards the fazail, the virtues, the benefits of fasting. Because this normally is made mention in Ramadan anyway, and prior to Ramadan, these type of things are mentioned then. Just the way in the month of Ramadan also, these type of verses were done in the Quran Tafseer, and prior to it also such type of fazail are mentioned. We all know with regards to the virtues of fasting. Everybody even knows that fasting is first upon him. This is what I mentioned today in the talk before Jummah, which was regards Salat. The Salat is something that everybody knows, every believer knows that Salat is first upon him. Hardly will you find a believer who doesn't know Salat is first. Yes, it is a different issue whether everybody practices it or not, but they all know that Salat is first. In the same way, fasting is also one of those things that every believer knows that fasting is first. You won't find any believer who doesn't fast who will say he didn't know that fasting was first, or that it was something that was just optional. Even he knows that fasting is first. However, obviously we know not everybody does fast during the month of Ramadan. And as I mentioned earlier today also, with regards to Salat, the Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned in the hadith that whoever's Salat is in proportion, whoever is punctual upon his Salat, all his other ibadat, he will also become punctual in all his other ibadat. If he perfects his Salat, all his other ibadat will also be perfected. And we know that whoever performs this salah, he'll get the tawfiq to fast in the month of Ramadan, give the zakat, go for hajj, and do many other good deeds. Because from all the farais, the most easiest is that of salat. Because in salah, nobody has to pay anything, and salat is easy. Fasting in the month of Ramadan is difficult because you're fasting 30 days, obviously. Zakat is difficult because now you have to take out some money. Going for hajj is also difficult because here also there's some expenditure involved, and obviously the entire journey of hajj isn't just an easy ride, etc. Whereas salat, dear friends, is very simple. You don't have to get any visas, book any tickets, pay any money anywhere. You don't have to pay admission fee, etc. You don't have to abstain from anything. And even if you do have to abstain from anything, which obviously in salat you abstain from eating, drinking, talking, etc. But for how long is it? It's just a matter of a couple of minutes, and that's no difficulty upon anybody at all. You don't find out because of just 4 rakats of salah, a person abstains from talking, eating, drinking, now he starts suffering from it. Nobody suffers at all from it. So compared to the other farais, salat is the one which is very easy. So obviously, that person who performs his salat, which is the easy one, he will get the tawfiq of doing the more difficult one. Because that person who can't do the difficult one, you don't expect him that he'll be doing the easy one. So salat, which is the easy one, whoever starts doing this regularly, gradually, it gives him the tawfiq of doing the more difficult other aspects of ibadat. And this is how mankind is, should be, that each person wants to increase various levels in things that he does, his ability, etc. So whoever starts off with the easy ibadat of salat, then gradually the whole year he practices, and then the month of Ramadan comes, he has a desire to do more, and then he starts fasting in the month of Ramadan, he performs the extra salat which is the tarawih, etc. And then after the month of Ramadan, he wants to go further, and then not long comes the time of hajj, and now he goes for hajj. In this way you find that he continually remains steadfast. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained siyam upon us, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that it creates taqwa in us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained taqwa upon us for all times. Not only for the month of Ramadan, but at all times a believer has to stay in a condition of taqwa. However, people's lives are different. Circumstances and environment, atmospheres are different outside the month of Ramadan. So during the other months of the year, if a person wants to change his life, he finds it a bit difficult. Whereas in the month of Ramadan, it becomes more easier for a person to change his life. Why? Because the atmosphere is there. There's a specific way and atmosphere around a person where everybody is just inclined towards doing good. This is the atmosphere that is built up, which makes it easy for a person to take stock of his life and make a change in his life. During the month of Ramadan, a person, he abstains from the desires, internal desires of wanting to eat, etc. He's subduing his desires. And taqwa is subduing a person's desires. In the month of Ramadan, the training given to us is that a person should subdue his halal desires, so that by being able to subdue his halal desires, he should also get the ability to subdue his haram desires. Because in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't tell us to abstain from haram in the month of Ramadan. He hasn't told us that. He has just told us to abstain from that thing which normally is halal. Outside the period of time of Subh Sadiq to Ghurub, sunset, eating and drinking, being with the wife obviously is halal. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to abstain from these things in order to put us through a training wherein a person now can control his nafs, his desires. So that if he even gets the practice of staying away from halal, then all the more he should be able to abstain from haram. Because, dear friends, just the way it is haram to do evil in the month of Ramadan, it is just the same haram in the remaining months of the year. Not that during the other months of the year It's okay to watch TV, to listen to music, to go out without the headscarf, not to perform salah. Now all these things are fine in the other months, and then in the month of Ramadan only all these things become haram. Like many homes also what happens is that the TV gets the hijab put on during the month of Ramadan. That also becomes, even the TV set becomes so pious now that even that has his hijab on also, isn't it? The Qurans which were collecting dust during the whole year, now just the way during Christmas time people go into their lofts and this and that and take out all the various decorations. Unfortunately we find a couple of days before Ramadan also the covers are opened up and all the Qurans are taken out and dusted off, etc. All the Dini books are taken out, etc. Now people want to look for receivers, they buy receivers, etc. If they didn't have scarves, they go shopping and buy a few scarves, because now they go out, they want to wear a few scarves, etc. So in this way what happens is everybody becomes practicing Muslims only for the month of Ramadan. As soon as the month of Ramadan finishes, the announcement is given that tomorrow is a day of Eid, and then you find that the scarf is off, the hijab is off the TV, and now all the recorded soaps, everything now starts. Because for a whole month now a person has the whole month's tapes and everything stacked up. Now a person has to get back up to date. The month of Ramadan is different. Now you have to get back up to date. Up to date with what? Not with a person's ibadat, etc., but with the soaps that a person has missed. The ilan of Eid is given, and the hijabs and the scarves are off, and back to the makeup and the fashion. The beards that were there are also off. When the musalli comes for Eid, mashallah, till the last Tarawih you find there's something growing there on the face. There's something growing there on the face, and when Eid Salat comes you find even that is totally gone. The safs of the masajid, which were full to capacity, where in the month of Ramadan people start planning that we need to expand the masjid, we need to now start making plans and start asking people donate more, we need to make an extension of the masjid is becoming small. And then the next day for Fajr Salah, on the same Eid day Fajr Salah, and then all the plans are put aside now and we'll think about it next year. Next Ramadan comes and then no, we need to expand, we really need to expand. And then the Eid Salah comes, that's also put away because the masjids are empty again. This is how we have made the month of Ramadan. Whereas what we don't realize is that just the way we spend the month of Ramadan, we should be spending the entire year in the same manner. Only difference is that in the month of Ramadan, from one period to another period, the halal things Allah Ta'ala has prohibited for us. That's the only difference in the month of Ramadan compared to any other months. But we have made it such that in Ramadan we become pious, outside Ramadan different. All the things which are normally haram, they become haram only in Ramadan. That's why we find Ramadan so difficult, because now it's not just a matter of abstaining from eating and drinking, but now it's a matter of abstaining from smoking, abstaining from watching TV, from listening to music, of doing this, doing that, doing this and that. Now a person thinks, oh, the month of Ramadan is too difficult. There's too many things to abstain from. Whereas for a person who remains with taqwa throughout the year, in the month of Ramadan, it's just a matter of him getting into ritual of not being able to eat from Subh Sadiq to sunset. That's the only change that comes in him. And the other extra change will be obviously that the Isha Salat will become a bit longer, wherein now he has to perform the Tarawih, whereas before obviously he would go home a little earlier. Here also we find, with regards to Tarawih Salah also we find so many musallis are so punctual with the Tarawih Salah, but they're not punctual at all with the Farais. Whereas they don't realize is that the Tarawih is Sunnatul Muakkada, which is very important, a person should perform it with Jamaat. However, more important than the Tarawih is the daily 5 farz. The daily 5 farais, these are more important than the Tarawih. So what happens is we are so punctual with the Tarawih that we make sure we make so much preparations, we're ready there, we go for Tarawih, etc. But then as soon as Ramadan finishes, or never mind, in Ramadan also we're not there for Fajr, but we're there for the Tarawih Salah. This is how we have made it. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that if you remain with taqwa in the month of Ramadan, it's a training ground for you. If you train properly in the month of Ramadan, then the next remaining 11 months you should be able to remain with taqwa. The person trains well throughout the month, then he knows the next month of the year, even if he doesn't train, at least he's going to be fit. But then he also knows that he can't remain that way, he has to then get back fit again. So then he knows that let me start training again, and then if he stops for a while, he'll be okay. So in the same way, in the month of Ramadan, we are training ourselves spiritually, we are boosting our batteries, etc., so that during the remaining months, we can spend the remaining months with taqwa. And then we find that as obviously the batteries and everything starts becoming weaker, now we feel that now we need to do a bit more training again. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the month of Ramadan again, and then in that month we do a bit more training, and that training lasts us for the remaining 11 months. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means, that لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. So from this also we realize that if a person spends the month of Ramadan correctly, as is mentioned in the hadith, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enable him to spend the remaining months also correctly. As Hakim al-Mantani mentions, that person who remains with taqwa in the month of Ramadan, and he spends his month of Ramadan correctly, there is hope that the remaining year also he'll spend correctly. And he who neglects in the month of Ramadan, and he who doesn't spend the month of Ramadan correctly, there is less hope that his year will go well. Although hidayat is in the hands of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give a person hidayat any time of the year, his life might change during the year, but most common is that a person won't spend the remaining year correctly if he doesn't spend the month of Ramadan correctly. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَاتٍ, that the days of fasting are days that have been fixed. So if we decide that, look, from tomorrow we're going to start fasting for 30 days. So you go back to your places, that Elan was given by Mufti Zubair Dudha that we start fasting now. We can fast for 30 days as we want, from Ghurub, from Subh Sadiq to Ghurub, etc. We can even start Taraweeh also, everything. But what we will find is we won't get the reward of fasting in the month of Ramadan. We might just get the reward of fasting nafil fast, but that nafil fast won't be the same as that of the month of Ramadan. These are specific prescribed days in a specific moment. As we find also Nabi Kareem mentioned in the hadith, that a person who doesn't fast, if he then makes up for it, meaning a person who leaves his fast deliberately, and then if he wants to make compensation for it, Nabi Kareem mentions that even if he fasts for the remaining of his life, he can't compensate for one fast missed in the month of Ramadan. Which also means that if a person, as Fuqaha mentioned, that if a person, for even a valid reason, missed a fast in the month of Ramadan, and obviously he makes it up afterwards, by making it up, he has discharged his duty and his obligation of that fast. However, he'll still be deprived of the nur and the benefit and the barakat of the fast in the month of Ramadan itself. That he won't be able to gain outside the month of Ramadan. So it is for specific days, and as I mentioned to you, as has been mentioned in Ramadan also, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it easy for us, that it is for the entire month of Ramadan, 30 days, 29 to 30 days. However, never do we hear that anybody dies because he fasts in the month of Ramadan. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't ordained us to fast continuously from the first till the 30, nobody would live. There wouldn't be any Muslims at all. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasn't ordained something too difficult upon us. But all He has said, from this one time to the other time, do not eat, thereafter eat as you will. In our cases, we make up for it afterwards anyway. Normally before Ramadan, people say, this Ramadan I'm going to lose a bit of weight. Rather he puts on more weight with all the samosas, pakores and all the other things, he puts on more weight. Because what happens is when he sits down for iftari, then he makes up for the entire day's loss iftari time. So it is only for a specific amount of days that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us to fast. And this is the wisdom in not fasting continuously. That's why you find in the hadith also mentioned that one of the benefits of fasting is that it gives a person good health. Because the root to all illnesses is the stomach. And the stomach also needs some rest. Just the way everything else needs a bit of rest, in the same way the stomach also needs some rest. The reason why we are so unhealthy and why we become ill is because we don't eat correctly. Our timings of food is also incorrect. We eat something, by the time, before it even digests, we're already stuffing it again. So in this way, the stomach is always working overdrive. It's not getting the chance to digest the food, to relax for a while, and let everything go according to how it should be. So fasting helps a person physically also. And in the month of Ramadan, this is what happens. When a person fasts, it helps him. Now to continuously fast, this isn't good either for a person. And as we know, this is ummati wasata, the moderate ummat. So moderation is that you fast, you eat. You fast, you eat. And not that you continuously fast. That's why Nabi Karim has also mentioned with regards to nafil fast, that the best form of nafil fast is the fast of Dawood alayhi salam, and that is to fast for one day, miss a day, fast, and alternate days to fast, and not that a person continuously fasts every day, and to fast continuously 24/7 either. Ayyam ma'dudat, the days are mentioned. فَمَنْ كَانَ مِنْكُمْ مَرِيضًا أَوْ عَلَى سَفَرٍ, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to make it more easy for this ummah, mentions that whoever of you are ill or on a journey, فَإِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ, then its days, its amount are on other days. That whoever is ill, by ill meaning that his illness is of that nature by which if he fasts, his illness will become more severe, or that it will lengthen, he'll just increase the time of him getting better, or there is fear that he will lose his life, then obviously a person is exempted from fasting. Or ala safarin, or that a person is on safar, meaning he is traveling. فَإِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. By traveling doesn't mean that you're just going from Dewsbury to Huddersfield, etc. By traveling means a shari'i travel. The shari'i travel, which Nabi Karim mentions, a journey which takes for 3 days traveling. And the fuqaha have mentioned that this 3 days of traveling in today's times, calculated in miles, is about 48 miles journey. Whoever travels for this distance or more, he is a musafir. فَإِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then for such a person, fasting does not become forgiven. That now he doesn't have to fast, but his days will be fulfilled outside this period of time, some other time. When now he's a muqim, he's not traveling, or now that he's better, then he will keep the fast. So not that it is totally forgiven for him. وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ. And upon that person, يُطِيقُونَهُ, who has the ability, فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ, then his compensation is to feed the poor. فَمَنْ تَتَوَّى خَيْرًا, subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever does good for huwa khayrun lahu, this is better for him, meaning that whoever fasts in this period of time is better for him. وَأَنْ تَصُومُوا خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ, and that you fast is better for you if you were to know. Now this portion of the verse, that person who has the ability, his compensation is to feed the poor, this verse has been abrogated. Initially, when the command of fast was revealed, the command was that whoever feels to fast should fast, and that person who doesn't feel like fasting, he should feed the poor. That was the initial command. When fasting was initially ordained, it wasn't the way it is now. It was that Allah Ta'ala has ordained it. Whoever wants to fast should fast. As Allah Ta'ala says, fasting is better for you. And whoever had the ability to fast but didn't feel like fasting, he would just give fidyatun, compensation, and that would be, he would just pay the miskin, a poor person, for a meal. That would be sufficient for him. However, the next verse that we are doing, that abrogated this verse, wherein now it became compulsory upon every person that he should fast, unless obviously he is ill or he is traveling, etc. So this aspect, that he who has the ability and then he still doesn't fast, he should just give fidya, this has been abrogated. So it doesn't mean that whoever doesn't feel like fasting, and dear friends, you'll find that mashallah, probably all of us who are sitting here, we are accustomed to fasting in the month of Ramadan. Even our small children fast. But there are so many Muslims outside, dear friends, who do not even fast during the month of Ramadan, even without a valid reason. They are fit, they are well, etc. But just because they find it difficult to fast, they do not fast. Whereas this, dear friends, is discarding of great farz upon a person, and the punishment for this is also severe. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان. In this verse Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that one of the virtues of the month of Ramadan is that Shahr Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, الذي is the one أنزل فيه القرآن, in which the Quran was revealed. In the month of Ramadan, the Torah, the Injil, the Sahifa, the books of Sayyidina Ibrahim alayhi salam, all the divine books were revealed in the month of Ramadan, and similarly the Quran was also revealed in the month of Ramadan. From the Lawh Mahfuz, the sacred tablets, to the heavens, the Quran was revealed during the night of Laylatul Qadr, which falls in the night of Ramadan. And it was from there, over a period of 23 years, that gradually it was revealed to Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So in its entirety, the Quran was revealed in the month of Ramadan. So this is one of the virtues of Ramadan, that the Quran was revealed in it. Last way you find that one of the things that people do more in the month of Ramadan is to recite the Quran. Taraweeh also is recited, the whole entire Quran is recited in Taraweeh also, because this is the month of the Quran. هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. And the Quran is what? هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ, guidance for mankind. وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ. And it also is clear proof, مِّنَ الْهُدَى وَالْفُرْقَانِ, and it clearly differentiates between righteousness and evil. The Quran is there to differentiate between right and wrong, evil and bad, etc. فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْ. Now this part has abrogated the previous part. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that whoever witnesses amongst you the month, فَلْيَصُمْ, he should fast. Which means that whoever witnesses the month of Ramadan, he should fast. Meaning that whoever sees the moon, he should start fasting. Or if you don't see the moon, then when you get the news of the moon, you should start fasting. It also means that whoever witnesses the month of Ramadan in the condition that he is aqil baligh, he is aqil, say, intelligent, he is sane, he is baligh, he is mature, he is free from menses, she, female, is not those days, etc., then a person falyasum has to fast. Which means that if a person is a non-believer, he is not a Muslim, or a person is insane, or he is a child, and the month of Ramadan occurs, fasting is not ordained on such a person. But the moment a person becomes mature, or becomes well from being insane, or a person comes in the fold of Islam, etc., now he witnesses the month of Ramadan, fasting becomes ordained upon him. If it's a female and if she is going through her days of haze, etc., then obviously she doesn't fast. But as soon as she becomes clean from it, immediately she now has to fast. فَلْيَصُمْ. Now this aspect, فَلْيَصُمْ, should fast, abrogates the previous aspect wherein Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned that you just give fidya if you don't feel like fasting. وَمَنْ كَانَ مَرِيضًا وَعَلَى سَفْرٍ فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. And whoever of you is ill or on traveling, then his days will be on another day. This again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings this in order to clarify that just the way the other part was abrogated, this part still stands. Because a person may think that probably it means that even now, even if you are ill or you are traveling, then also you still have to fast. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings the same verse again, just to clarify the aspect that every person has to fast, yes, unless if a person is maridan, he is ill, or he is traveling, then he can compensate for it, meaning that he can now fast on after the month of Ramadan. One thing that is very important is, because we find a lot of people asking that if you don't fast in the month of Ramadan, what is the fidya, what is the compensation for it? The compensation for missing fast in the month of Ramadan, dear friends, is only for such a person who becomes so old or so ill, wherein there is no hope that they can make qaza of it after the month of Ramadan. So a person who just had a slight headache, or maybe yes, somebody was ill during the month of Ramadan, was quite ill, he couldn't fast in the month of Ramadan, but he is well enough to make up for it outside the month of Ramadan. Even if he gives fidya, compensation for it, money for it, it will not discharge the obligation. He has to still fast and make up for it. The fidya, the compensation, which is the amount of Sadaqatul Fitr, which is £1.50, £2 per fast, is only for a person who now is so ill that you've lost hope that this person is going to recover from it. Or now a person is so old, obviously you're not going to get any better or younger anyway. For such type of person, they can give fidya of paying the poor for each fast £2. But a person who you have hope that he's still well, he's still got age, etc., and there is hope, that person then has to make up for it. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. This is through the grace of Allah, wherein He says that Allah intends for you ease. وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. And He doesn't intend upon you difficulty. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordained fasting upon us. He is not oppressing us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows billah is not oppressing us, that He gives us the will we can eat. Now He's telling us you can't eat. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordained fasting for us. Why? So that taqwa, as we know, is farz on each person. So that if we can't inculcate taqwa in the other months, then Allah has ordained the month of Ramadan to make it much easier for us in which we can inculcate taqwa. So Allah ta'ala is doing us a favor. At the same time also, He has given us the ability to think about those people who are in worse conditions than we are. Our case is such, dear friends, that during the day we stay hungry, we'll become very, very hungry, but we still have hope. And that hope is, we know that at the time of iftari, we already know when we start the fast in the morning, we already know that in the evening we're going to have a meal. We all know that there's going to be iftari, and we all also know that the iftari is going to be better than normal days. Now, in the month of Ramadan, the food, everything is better, isn't it? There's more food, there's more, you build up more fat and cholesterol and everything also. So, a person even knows that iftari time is going to make up for it. This is our condition. The purpose of fasting is that at least a person thinks with regards other people who are in worse conditions than him. Worse condition meaning we only fast for 30 days. There are those, dear friends, who have to fast for 12 months of the year. In such a manner that they know for sure that at the end of the day they're not going to get all the delicacies and all the beautiful food that we have. They may just get a little bit here and there during the day, which has to last them for so many days to come. They are not in the condition that we are in. Obviously, if Allah has blessed us more than others, this is out of His grace. It doesn't mean that we also now just leave everything aside and also start living a life of poverty. We should also enjoy the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but it shouldn't be that in enjoying the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we forget with regards those people who are less fortunate as we are. So at least when we become hungry during the day, we can at least think with regards to those Muslims throughout the world who are in worse conditions than we are. And then when we sit under the Sadaqah, when we sit to eat and make iftari, then not that now we think, oh, what shall I have first, I have this, that first. Then rather that time we should make shukr, gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that look at your bounties, we have fasted for the day and you have given us so many different dishes on our plate, whereas there are those who don't have anything at all. So in this at least we can show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to make it easy for us. That's why He tells us not to fast throughout 24 hours. And at the same time He mentions that if you are ill, you're not forced to fast. If you are so ill that you can't manage to fast, you become worse, then do not fast now, fast later when you're well. Or ala safarin, if you are on a journey. Now obviously journey, we know in those times journey was difficult. In today's time you can travel from one side of the world to the other side of the world without going through any difficulty. But then still, because of it being the command of the Quran, the safar has still remained. You get those who say, well, in today's time there is no such thing as travelling as there were before. But then too also we have been given this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, where if a person is travelling, he doesn't have to fast. Although obviously we know that our travelling in today's time is easy, So as is mentioned on top, one tasumu khairul lakum. If you fast, that's better for you. So if you know that you can manage the journey by fasting, you're not going to get any difficulties in it, then you fast, fair enough. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْإِدَّةَ. Why has Allah Ta'ala made it so easy for us? وَلِتُكْمِلُوا الْعِدَّةَ, so that you complete the amount, you complete the entire month of Ramadan fasting. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that you mention the greatness of Allah عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, upon that which He guided you, وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, and so that you show gratitude. وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ means takbir, to mention the greatness of Allah, and Fuqaha here mentions the takbir on the day of Eid, so that you complete the iddat, you complete the period of time, so that on the day of Eid, وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ, you make the takbir of Allah, and in the takbir we make Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, you're praising and mentioning the greatness of Allah, upon what? عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, upon that which He guided you, meaning guided you with regards fasting in the month of Ramadan. That's why, dear friends, Eid in reality is for those who fasted in the month of Ramadan. Although you find that on the day of Eid also, all those thieves who didn't fast in the month of Ramadan, mashallah, they also wearing good clothes and also enjoying the feast, and they're also there in the masjid, etc. Obviously they are welcome, not that is not their Eid also, but in reality, dear friends, as Allah Ta'ala says here, وَلِتُكَبِّرُوا اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ, shows the true Eid is for that person who fasted in the month of Ramadan. Because obviously now he's back to eating, so he will appreciate the day of Eid, whereas for others the whole Ramadan was Eid for them, so Eid is just a normal day, only difference is they might be wearing a bit better clothes than normal. So Eid in reality, dear friends, is for that person who completed the month of Ramadan fasting. وَلَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ, so that then you make shukr and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in between mentions one verse which is totally different to the verses we have done, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes back to making mention of Siyam. Says, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, to O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when my servants ask you anni with regards me, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, tell them فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, I am close. أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ, I accept the calls, the supplications of the one who calls, إِذَا دَعَانِ, when he calls me. فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, hence فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا, fulfill my command, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, give answer to me, meaning obey my command, وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and have iman on me, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that you can find the right path. Now Allah Ta'ala mentions this, and then again He mentions أُهِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثُ إِلَى نِسَائِكُمْ. He goes back with regards Sawm. This has been mentioned in between, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي قَرِيبٌ, O Muhammad, when my servants ask of me, tell them فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, that I am close. Some of us today have mentioned that this was mentioned on an occasion when Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba were on expedition. When they would go on each mountain, they would start raising their voice, etc. And on one occasion, some Sahaba asked Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, tell us, is our Rabb, Allah, is He close to us or not? If He is close to us, we know that we do not have to shout and make dua loudly. If He is far from us, then we know that we should make dua loudly. On this, Allah Ta'ala revealed this, that when my servants ask about me, say, فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, I am close. كَحَبْلِ الْوَرِيدِ, so close to you as the jugular vein to a person, how close that is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so close to His servant. Which means that when we make dua, which also shows us that the masnoon, the correct manner of making dua is that dua should be done silently. Why? Because Allah is there, He can hear you. Allah Ta'ala is not deaf, and neither is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so far away that you have to make loud dua, etc. This is what it means. إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي أَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, I am close to Him, so you do not need to elevate and raise your voices in making dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why the masnoon and the correct manner of making dua is that dua should be done silently. However, on various different occasions, if dua is done loudly in order to teach the people how to make dua, or some people don't know what to ask, etc. So on certain occasions if dua is done loudly, it is fine, but the correct manner is that dua should be done silently. Ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions that I accept the calls of whoever calls me, idha da'an. When a person calls me, da'i, da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an, when one calling and making dua to Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it. Now obviously we know there are those, as mentioned in the hadith, a just ruler, a person who is a musafir traveler, a person who is oppressed, a certain people who Allah Ta'ala always accepts their du'as. On one hadith is mentioned Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the du'as of a person when he does iftari. That's why some Mufassiri mentioned, Allah Ta'ala mentions this here linked with fasting, that when a person fasts during the month of Ramadan, and then at the time of iftari when he makes dua, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the du'as of a person after he fasts during the day. Ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an. Allah accepts the du'as. Allah accepts also in different ways. Allah Ta'ala is accepting the du'as. One is that what you ask, you get. Some people may wonder that we ask for so many things but we don't get it. But in reality we do get it. As long as obviously one is, as was previously mentioned, persons eating everything is halal. Obviously person eats haram, etc. He can make as much dua as he wants. Nabi Karim mentions his duas won't be accepted. However, a person fulfills the criterion and then he makes dua, his duas will always be accepted. As it mentions in the hadith, Nabi Karim mentioned, either Allah Ta'ala gives the person what he asks, or if he doesn't, then in the same value amount Allah forgives his sins, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala rewards a person in the hereafter. When a person will be entered into Jannah, he'll find so many different bounties there, and he won't know for what deeds he got these bounties. And then when he'll ask, it will be told to him, these are in reward for all those du'as of yours which were not accepted in the world. And then when a person sees these bounties there, he would wish that if only none of his du'as were accepted in the world. So this is what it means. So it is true where Allah Ta'ala says, I accept the du'as. So either Allah gives it to us in this world, if not, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to us in a better abode, in a better manner. Because we may be making dua of such things, although they are halal. Obviously dua for anything haram, etc. Allah give me the mortgage, make sure that the bankers give me the mortgage, etc. Allah give me barakat in my casino. These type of duas, dear friends, obviously have no hope at all that these type of duas are going to be accepted. They're not going to be accepted at all. Now at times we may make dua of things which are halal. So a person makes dua, Allah give me a business, anything that is halal, obviously, give me the mobile phone shop that I want, nothing wrong in it. He makes dua for something which is halal. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is best for him. Allah ta'ala knows that if he gets that mobile phone shop, then all his salat and everything is going to go. Allah ta'ala knows what is best for a person. So it might be halal, nothing wrong in asking for it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what is better for that person. That with regards to the dunya and the hereafter, it is better that he doesn't get it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't grant it to a person, but He'll give him better than that in Jannah. And if it is meant for a person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will definitely give it to him. That's why one of the etiquettes of making dua is also that if we feel that we want something, instead of asking Allah ta'ala that, Ya Allah, grant me that car, or grant me that business, grant me that girl or boy, etc., make dua in this way that Allah, if this business venture, etc., there's khair benefit in me, then grant it to me. If not, grant me something better. Instead of directly just asking for that, Allah knows best what is good for us. If it is halal, it may be granted to us, but then we find that it's not good for us. So we make dua for khair and afiyat, for goodness. That if this object or this thing or this venture or this person is good for me, grant it to me. If not, then grant me what is better. Because at the time, that's the only goodness that we can see. But Allah knows there may be something else which is better for us. So rather we ask, because as with our deficiency, we're just going to go for that which is in front of us. Allah Ta'ala Himself knows what is better for us, so always ask for that in which there is khair. And when a person makes dua in this way, you'll find that whatever is best for him, that is what will happen for him. Although at the time he may not appreciate what happens to him, it wasn't the choice that he had in mind, but in the long run he'll always realize that there is always khair and benefit in it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the du'as when a person makes dua, which also shows here that da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an means that any person has the rights of making dua to Allah. You find many people who say to others, make dua for me, make dua change, make dua this, that for me. Obviously, there are those people whose duas are easily accepted compared to others. So there is nothing wrong in asking another person that make dua for me. It comes in a hadith, a person who is absent makes dua for another person, the dua is accepted quickly. So there is no harm in asking another person to make dua for you. But this doesn't mean that a person shouldn't make dua himself. More than another person making dua, a person should make dua himself. Because if there is somebody pious, obviously their duas are easily accepted, they'll make dua. However, if a person who isn't so pious, etc., when he makes dua, he's going to make dua with much more humility in him. Because already he knows, because in his mind he already knows that his duas are not worthy of being accepted. So due to this, out of great humility, he asks from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept his duas. So each and every single person, along with requesting another person to make dua, should also make dua themselves. You have many people who say, make dua for me, and your duas are accepted, your duas are accepted. How do you know his duas are accepted? You can't say that for sure, that his duas are accepted. Yes, if a person goes for Hajj, somebody is going for travelling, then you know the means are greater for his duas to be accepted. Musafir, his duas are accepted. Somebody goes to great sacred places for Hajj, etc. These are occasions and places where duas are easily accepted, so you can request a person, but it doesn't mean that now you don't make dua. Think, I've told so-and-so, I've told Mufti Saheb here, I've told this Maulana there, I've told this Alim there, this pious person here, there, this Hadith have to make dua for me, so that's I don't have to make dua, they're all making dua for me. More important that is a person, because dear friends, dua shows humility. That person who doesn't make dua is a sign of pride, that he doesn't want to ask from Allah. When you ask, you have to humble yourself. You can't ask with pride. Anybody who asks has to lower himself. So a person who is humble will always ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very, very important a person should himself ask from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala along with requesting other people. And with asking also, do the deeds also. Many times you find people say, make dua, start eating surah, make dua, start keeping beard, make dua, start doing this, start doing that. Whereas here the Prophet is making dua for him daily, every day making dua for that person, and he's just sitting there hoping that his duas will be accepted, and he does it. Whereas, dear friends, that's not the case. With the dua, the effort has to be there. With the planning, the theory, the practical has to be there. The theory is, you make dua, you ask Allah, you make the effort also. Not that you stay there in bed and you say, may Allah give me the tawfiq for Fajr, give me the tawfiq for Fajr, give me the tawfiq for Fajr, but then you're sitting in bed also. You say, Allah give me the tawfiq, and you get up also, and make an effort towards it also. You make an effort to do good and make dua, Allah will help you. What happens is, the dua will be fuel. The dua will be a push, an injection for you towards doing good. Not that you just make dua and you don't do things practically. And you find this is very, very common. So many people ask to request dua, make this dua for me, make that dua for me, but they don't make any effort at all. And dua also, dear friends, why dua should be done silently? Because in dua silently, as I mentioned, there's greater sincerity when dua is done silently. Because it is just between you and Allah. Nobody else knows what you are asking for. Neither are you asking for something for others to hear what you are asking for. It is just between you and Allah. There's great sincerity in this. That's why dua should be done silently between the servant and Allah. Today we find there's a lot of mediocrity in ibadat also, dear friends. Our qiraat also, we find the salat is mediocrity. Somebody reads entertaining salat, we want that person to perform the salah, irrelevant of whether the tajweed is correct, irrelevant of whether the salat is correct or not. There should be entertainment. When we want to hear talks also, we want those speakers who will entertain us, irrelevant of whether it goes into the heart or not. It just goes into one ear, we get the enjoyment out of the other ear. As soon as we leave the masjid, everything is gone from the mind. We want entertainment. those speakers who have a bit of poetry inside it, also a bit of this, that, qawwali and whatever things. We like entertainment. In the same way, we find that dua today, dear friends, has also become a form of entertainment. Many places you go to, especially at the end of Tarawih also, in the Khatam of the Quran, we have dua also, lengthy duas. Various occasions we have lengthy duas. And a lot of these duas, dear friends, are totally void of sincerity. It is just mere parrot fashion dua and a form of entertainment. The more singing and crying that goes into it, the more enjoyment it is. The more you make people cry, the better the dua, isn't it? The tune should also be there. Whereas dua is not qiraat, dua is not poetry, so there's no need for there to be some tunes and all these type of things. So the more tunes there is there, the more enjoyment there is there, we regard this to be a form of entertainment. And then we wonder why our duas are not accepted. On great occasions we make dua and then we wonder why our duas are not accepted. Obviously, if we are doing it to show people that so-and-so people or so-and-so alim's qiraat dua is so good, or the dua there was top power dua there, you mean we all need to go there, the dua is long there, here the dua is only 5 minutes, 10 minutes and that's it. And those people who come here will see even after Jummah there's no dua. Doesn't finish, there's hardly any dua there. And they like all the dua with this Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad in every Inna Allahu wa malaikatu yusalluna ala nabi, and everybody is mashallah reading durood and they're reading this and ameen. The poets have been saying Allahumma inni zalamtu nafsan, that we have done oppression upon ourselves, and people say ameen. This is also what we find also, because poor people behind them a lot of times, as in the month of Ramadan, a lot of times the people who perform the Tarawih is just Hafiz, he's not an alim, and Hafiz doesn't know the meaning of what he reads. So he's also making dua there, but he doesn't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue what he's asking, and the poor congregation also doesn't have a clue what he's asking. And in this way, we're just saying Ameen. We don't know what we're asking, we're just saying Ameen. How do you expect our duas to be accepted? And then the whole dua is done in Arabic, and the same thing is repeated in Urdu again, just lengthening the time. So instead of it being 10 minutes, make it 20 minutes. The occasion, people want it to be long duas, so now we're increasing it. The same thing asked in Arabic is now asked in Urdu, and then maybe in Gujarati, another English, and this other language, all increased just to pull the time. All these type of things, dear friends, is entertainment. All these type of things, dear friends, lack sincerity. It is also away from the Sunnat method of doing dua. And dear friends, I'll be very honest to you, in many occasions, the person when he makes dua also, some people start a lecture also in the dua. And sometimes such type of things are said in the dua also, dear friends. In great honesty, it is actually disrespectful, and they are also inappropriate for a person to say such type of things in his duas. I won't go into any examples, etc., but there are a lot of times where people start yelling and crying and wailing and saying so many things, dear friends, which in reality are not appropriate at all. These things we should not do. Our ibadah should be simple. With regards to Salat of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, also we know, obviously as an Arab and the Quran was revealed to him, his qiraat was obviously beautiful. Nobody can match the qiraat of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. No qari at all can match that. Even in Jannatul Firdaus, your friends will get the honor of listening to the qiraat of Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. However, the salat and everything else was straightforward and simple. Straightforward and simple. There was no this form of mediocrity, entertainment at all. It was simple and straightforward. Whether people enjoy it or they don't enjoy it, that wasn't the case. Today we have made it such that it needs to be enjoyment for people. The people should be able to enjoy it. Even if it means going beyond the sunnah, going away from the sunnah to please the people, this is the type of things we do today. We'll go to those means that we displease Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in order to please the people. Whereas more important than that is, dear friends, whether the people are pleased or not, that's up to them. But Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam shouldn't be displeased. The sunnah shouldn't be sacrificed for the pleasure of mankind, dear friends. This is something that is very, very important. And finally Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي, you should obey me, answer me meaning obey me, وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and have iman on me, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that you may be guided. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you obey my commands, and if you have iman upon me, obviously your du'as will be accepted, and also لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, you will gain the right path. So this is very, very important. We obey Allah, we bring iman Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then obviously whatever ibadat we do, we will gain the benefits and the virtues of it. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again mentions with regards a few commands of fasting, and that also of itikaf, which we shall do next week, inshallah.